Nick, is the Sixers' recent slide a cause for concern?
It certainly is a bit of a cause for concern because of how the losses have happened, and even the win, overtime against Wild's beloved Magic, is not a great one. Just quickly in regards to the MVP conversation, I actually think this was a great day for the MVP chances of Giannis and Luka, because neither Jokić nor Embiid took hold of that thing in that fourth quarter. Like, Embiid had a chance. They were up 8 going into the fourth. Joker was on the bench. Embiid had a chance to take over. He didn't. He had a mediocre fourth quarter. And Joker, at first, I was watching that game last night, Brew. I said, what is this? The All-Star game? Joker glued to the bench for the first 7 minutes of that fourth quarter while the Nuggets and Bones Highland make a big comeback. He then comes in late but doesn't do much. They win. This was not I didn't think it was, Embiid had a better stat line than Joker. I didn't think either one of them played particularly great in this game, but here's why it's concerning for Philly, Brew. Since Doc Rivers has gotten there, and certainly prior to Doc as well, but let's just talk about since Doc's gotten there. Man, they sure as hell seem like they have trouble closing quarters and closing games, don't they? We saw it bite them in the Atlanta series, and everyone just blamed Trae Young, and blame Trae Young. Blame Ben Simmons. But last night was another example. You're up 8 at home, and in the fourth quarter, Joker is on the bench, and you let Bones Highland and company all of a sudden take the lead before Joker even comes back in. And it was an interesting, if you were watching the game during the interview between third and fourth quarters, I forget who the sideline reporter was, my apologies. But Doc was asked about lead changes. He's like, yeah, well, hopefully in this fourth quarter there aren't any. It's like, nope, there will immediately be one. And so the reason it's a cause for concern is their big change over the last few years. Like, oh, we brought in James Harden. And James Harden, for all his brilliance, closing big games has never been what he's known for. So, yeah, I think it's more than a blip what has happened to them from the Brooklyn game to right now. I think it's certainly something worth monitoring closely.
Well, first, Nick, you mentioned Doc Rivers closing games. I mean, let's face it, the Doc being unable to close has been the story of his career since he won that championship with the Big Three in Boston. Whether it's a game or whether it's series, we know how many 3-1 leads he's dropped more than any other coach in the playoffs. So that could be an issue, you're right. But I'm going to look at James Harden. Kyrie Irving came in there last week and took Harden's heart. I'm not saying forever, but he took it in that game. And Harden has not yet been the same since. Even as you said, when they beat Orlando, he didn't shoot well from the field. And so my concern about this team, and I said it, initially when the trade was made, why I didn't think they win a championship with Harden, is I want to see how he handles adversity and pressure come playoff time. I don't care if James Harden averages 30 points and 10 assists and leads Philadelphia to an undefeated record the rest of the regular season. It is going to come down to what does he do when the moment gets big? And he, at this stage, lastly, based on what happened last week against Kyrie, when Kyrie clearly was challenging him, James Harden has lost the benefit of the doubt. So I'm not just going to assume that he's going to be big in a big moment. And last night, not a huge game, but last night was another example. Now, and it wasn't just Harden on this one. But if we go to the last play, there's 13 seconds left. They're down 3, and Harden's bringing the ball up court. Now, Harden was doubled. So I don't blame Harden did the right play. You don't see it on this highlight. He was doubled on the left wing. He passed it to Joel Embiid. And Embiid, with Jokić giving him like 6 feet, Embiid has an open 3 right before he makes that pass. Embiid was 3 for 3 from three-point range last night. We know he's a capable three-point shooter, about 37% from the floor, from 3 for this season. And he passes up an open look that Jokić is giving him to give the ball to George Niang. And I know Niang is a great three-point. He's a 40% three-point shooter. But obviously, you saw right there, it didn't work out. He hit the side of the backboard. Niang was 2 for 10 from 3 last night. Okay? He shouldn't have been getting that ball. Embiid had an open look at the three. And look at the last 3 minutes. Did Harden take over? No. Did Embiid take over? No. They looked to George Niang to do it. And Nick, that is a question at who is going to close games for this team in big moments. Because I think one of the things Harden liked about the idea of playing in Brooklyn was I got KD and Kyrie to close out those games, and I don't have to do it. Well, you got to do it in Philly.
And I don't know, Wilds, if this is Doc Rivers' fault or just George Niang's own lack of awareness. Listen, I'm not going to kill him for the shot. I mean, it hits the side of the backboard, so that's obviously terrible. But down three, you get an open corner three or semi-open JaMychal Green's closing out. But when you're lucky enough to get that rebound with 3 seconds left, down 2, the lack of awareness to not either dribble it out yourself and heave it or kick it to Harden, this has to, after this miss, Wilds, that has to be a pass. Like, that's I don't want to be disrespectful, that's a high school basketball mistake. You've got to know time, score, situation. Even if you make that, now it's Nuggets inbounding with like 0.6 left, up 1, game's over. So that's just it was a really bad sequence there for Brooklyn. And when he gets the rebound, Maxi's wide open and Harden's up there. That's bad. It's another bad finishing moment, Wilds. In all seriousness here, though, is there a greater level of concern? This is the same thing with Harden, and I caught a lot of flack for this because I was critical of him for playing well, and now I'm critical of him for playing poorly. But when he was playing so well at the beginning with Philly, I said, when did he start mailing it in Brooklyn? Because this is apex James Harden. And then it did seem like something, was taken away from him in that Brooklyn game. Now, his line from last night, by the way, his raw numbers look really good. But it's another one of those games where if you watched it, particularly in the fourth quarter, nobody was willing to take it over. And one of the reasons that I have not been as vehement, even though I don't think Joker's the MVP, but as vehement as others, that if it's not Joker, it's Embiid, is Embiid wasn't taking that thing over either. Embiid had damn near 30 through 3 quarters, and what he finished with 34. I think he had 5 in the fourth. He played the entire fourth quarter, the first 7 minutes of which it's against Boogie Cousins, who's not exactly known for his great defense. Now, Boogie was dotting some good threes last night. But I feel like with Philly, it's always been like at the end of these games, like, I guess we're going to give the ball to Tobias Harris. And I'll tell you who's not scared and who if the opportunity is given to him, Maxey will do it. Now, I think if you have Joel Embiid and James Harden, Maxey should not be the guy. He's an amazing third option. He should not be your closing guy, but he seems to have the mentality for it. And so I don't know if it's Embiid because he's center. It's kind of hard to play through a center at end of games. But this was a moment. This was a moment for Philly where they're at home, they're up almost double digits going into the fourth, you're against the defending MVP, and they end up blowing it. Like, it's a bad loss. And so they haven't, it's a bad trend they're on.
I mean, it's a weird one, right? Because if LeBron made that pass to Niang in the corner, like, smart basketball play, but otherwise we want, the game to end and go through Embiid. The thing that I'm worried about with Harden, and there's a little where there's smoke, there's fire, and you can say this is unfair. I don't think it's unfair, Broussard. I'm always worried about, like, does Harden have that, like, eye of the tiger mentality? And I said, you know what? It looks like he does when he's running up those stairs looking like Rocky. And then he had the bad game, and he went out to a birthday party, and it was out on social. If you want to go to a birthday party, go to a birthday party. But it's like, hey, guys, it might not be the best look for me. I just shot my worst game in the whole year, actually, including I shot worse against the Nets than I did when I was with the Nets, and I quit in the game in Sacramento. So I was like, all right, you got the birthday party. Then yesterday, he released like a hype video. There seems to be an obliviousness to this and just a lack of locked-inness where my singular focus is not on going to birthday parties and putting it out on social or making hype videos for a personal accolade. It is 100% dedicated to the Philadelphia 76ers. That's not where we're at, and I think occasionally it manifests in the games like, oh, I'm being doubled. All right, let me get rid of the ball. Okay, I'm not going to take over the game. There's something there. I call it there's lack of an eye of the tiger. It's a blind tiger. I'm going to call that tiger. No, you don't have the eyes of the tiger.
No, Wilds, as I said earlier, no, he doesn't. And until he shows us that he does in the postseason, we're going to say he doesn't have the eye of the tiger. That is the one thing he has lacked. For all of his greatness, shooting the basketball, making plays for other players, passing it, he right now doesn't seem to have that eye of the tiger. And it goes all the way back to his early career in Oklahoma City when he struggled in the finals against LeBron and the Miami Heat. I thought at that time, oh, he's young, it'll come, don't worry about it. But it has reared its ugly head time and time again. And I'm going to say something about Embiid, too, because you brought it up, Wilds, or Nick, too. Or no, I think it was Nick that said maybe it's hard to play through a center. No, I'm not giving Embiid that out because I've watched this team even with Ben Simmons over the years. We know they had trouble closing out games. All right, I can remember playoff games against Boston when they gave it up. And everybody blamed Brett Brown, and some of that may have been appropriate, right. But a lot of it had to go onto the players as well. And Embiid is not just a post-up center where, okay, it's hard to play through him at the end of games. He's out there at the three-point line. He's dribbling all the time. He's shooting mid-range jumpers.
But he's not
I wish we had a better film of that game. He should have shot the three-pointer. And while he had 6 feet, Jokić was backing up, giving it to him, and Embiid, who was 3 for 3 from three, who never rarely passes up an open three-point shot, passed it to George Niang. He didn't want it. So I got Harden, who doesn't seem to want it at the end of games, and now I got Embiid, who we got questions about wanting it at the end of games.
See, so I think
these are big concerns, Nick, for Philly.
I think Embiid wants it. I just think his level of execution hasn't been as good late in games as it has been early in games. But I'm going to start calling Wilds Goldilocks because this porridge is too hot and this porridge is too cold. None of them are just right. Because we got James Harden, not intense enough, partying, releasing hype videos. LeBron James, 10 games under 500, too intense. LeBron, take it easy. You're going to hurt poor Scotty Barnes with that basketball. Why are you so into it? Like, we gotta find the level of intensity that suits your odd tastes. Because it can't be not caring, but if you care too much, you don't like that either. So I gotta figure it out, like, who is it? What's the level of intensity? We need, like, Fred VanVleet, like a perfect, even-keeled level of intensity throughout all times.
Like, I think it'd be inappropriate. I think it'd be inappropriate to bring, like, just a bottle of tequila into into the game. But if you put it in a small satchel, I think, like happy medium.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.